A cruise ship is floating in the Atlantic Ocean right now. Its passengers cannot get off. 3 people on board are already dead, and the virus responsible, one that kills up to 50% of the people it infects, has potentially already spread to over 20 countries. This is not a movie, this is happening right now, in May 2026, and almost nobody is covering it properly. Here's exactly what happened. On April 1st, 2026, the MV Hondius, a Dutch-flagged expedition cruise ship, departed Ushuaia, Argentina. Ushuaia is the southernmost city on Earth. The ship was carrying passengers from 23 different nationalities. Everything seemed normal. It was not normal. Before boarding the ship, a Dutch couple, a husband and wife, had spent 4 months on a birdwatching road trip across Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay, visiting remote areas where a specific species of rat known to carry hantavirus was present. CNN. On January 31st, the couple had re-entered Argentina from Chile through the province of Neuquén, and also visited Misiones in northeastern Argentina, both areas previously identified by the WHO as regions where hantavirus is endemic. CNN. They never knew they had been exposed. They boarded the ship feeling fine. On April 11th, 10 days into the voyage, the Dutchman suddenly fell ill with fever, headache, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. He died on board that same day. Wikipedia. His body stayed on the ship for 2 weeks. On April 24th, when the ship docked at St. Helena, a remote British territory in the South Atlantic, his body was finally removed. At that same stop, approximately 30 to 40 passengers disembarked, including his wife. Wikipedia. His wife was already infected. She just didn't know it yet. On April 26th, she boarded a KLM flight from Johannesburg to Amsterdam. She was removed from the plane before takeoff due to her deteriorating medical condition. 2 days later, she died in a Johannesburg hospital. Wikipedia. A KLM flight attendant who had been in contact with her was subsequently admitted to a hospital in Amsterdam, showing possible hantavirus symptoms. CBC News. The virus had left the ship, and now nobody knew exactly where it had gone. So what is hantavirus, and why is this specific strain so alarming? Hantavirus is not new. It has existed for decades, but most strains of it cannot pass from human to human. You get it by breathing in dust contaminated with infected rodent urine, feces, or saliva. You disturb a nest, you inhale particles. The virus enters your lungs. Symptoms begin with severe fatigue, fever, muscle pain, headache, and nausea. Then it progresses to difficulty breathing. The lungs begin to fill with fluid. CBC News. The condition is called hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. And by the time you reach that stage, your odds are not good. Hantavirus carries a case fatality rate of up to 50% in the Americas. There is no specific treatment. There is no vaccine. The only thing that improves survival is getting into an ICU fast and staying there. WHO. But this outbreak is not caused by just any strain of hantavirus. The strain confirmed on the MV Hondius is the Andes virus, the only known strain of hantavirus capable of spreading from human to human. Wikipedia. That single fact is what makes this different from every hantavirus outbreak that came before it. Because now it does not require a rodent. It requires proximity to an infected person. The exact mechanism is still not fully understood. It is possible the virus can pass through direct contact with an infected person's saliva, but it remains unclear whether it can spread through airborne droplets produced by sneezing or coughing. Scientific American. That uncertainty is itself the problem. Back to the ship. As of May 7, 2026, there are 8 confirmed or suspected cases linked to the MV Hondius. 3 people are dead. 1 passenger is critically ill. The remaining approximately 146 passengers from 23 countries are still on board under strict precautionary measures. Time. The ship tried to dock in Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands to evacuate its passengers. The regional president of the Canary Islands, Fernando Clavijo, initially rejected the ship out of concern for the safety of the islanders. Wikipedia. WHO officials are now advising all passengers and crew to monitor themselves for symptoms for 45 days, the maximum possible incubation window. WHO. Meanwhile, 5 U.S. states are actively monitoring for the pathogen. 17 Americans were among those on board the vessel. Scientific American, and here is where it gets worse. Argentina has reported 101 hantavirus infections since June 2025, roughly double the caseload recorded over the same period the previous year. The virus was already spreading before anyone on that ship got sick. Time. Now here is the detail that will make your jaw drop. In 2025, the Trump administration eliminated funding for a research program specifically designed to study how hantavirus passes from rodents to humans. The program was being run through the West African Center for Emerging Infectious Diseases, part of a 10-center global network called the Centers for Research in Emerging Infectious Diseases. All 10 centers were shut down after the National Institutes of Health declared the research was unsafe. Scientific American. The scientists who ran those programs warned at the time that cutting this funding would leave the world more vulnerable to exactly this kind of outbreak. They were right. Experts are now pointing out that we know very little about the mechanics of human-to-human transmission of the Andes virus, in part because outbreaks this severe are so rare, and in part because funding to study it has been systematically cut. Scientific American. So where does this stand right now? 3 dead, 8 confirmed or suspected cases. Passengers dispersed across more than 20 countries before the outbreak was even identified. A KLM flight attendant hospitalized in Amsterdam. 5 U.S. states on alert. A ship that no country initially wanted to let dock. And a 45-day monitoring window that means we will not know the full picture until mid-June 2026 at the earliest. WHO officials have been clear. This is not COVID-19. The risk to the general public remains low. There is no evidence of widespread transmission risk beyond close contact with infected individuals. CBC News. But the WHO has also confirmed this is the first known cluster of hantavirus ever identified on a cruise ship. There is no playbook for this. Everything being done right now is being figured out in real time. A virus with a 50% kill rate, no vaccine, no cure, the only strain in the world that spreads human to human, on a ship, with passengers now scattered across the globe. The WHO says the risk is low, and they are probably right. Probably. Stay informed. Subscribe for updates as this story develops, because this one is far from over.